Welcome back to the channel, folks. If you're here, that means you probably have not inexplicably just faked your own death, and if you have, well, you did a really great job because I had no way of knowing, honestly. The first details of FromSoftware's new game have been revealed, and it includes things like big mech fights, mech customizations, and assembly, darker setting, boss battles, a FromSoft staple, and it's not going to be a Souls-like game, not open world, things like that. Now, I personally have never played an Armored Core game, and I only tell you that so you know that this is going to be a newbie's eyes looking at the franchise, but I'm interested because of the pedigree that FromSoftware has built up with a lot of their games. They've done some of my favorite games of all time, and here we are to talk about their next game, Armored Core 6. So if you like content that is like this, maybe consider subscribing, liking, commenting, and if you don't, I got Sloth Friend back here who's gonna be my enforcer and he's gonna make you do it. I don't know if you've ever spoken to him or looked at him, but he's got crazy eyes, man. He does. Now, obviously with some of the first details here, the biggest question is going to be, they've built their brand off these Souls-like games, these super difficult, often kind of, I guess you'd describe them more of like a gauntlet type of game where you're just going from area to area, trying to survive the gauntlet of enemies and getting to that boss at the end to kind of get a save point of sorts. So that was the big question. Are they going to keep building off of that and kind of just use the Armored Core branding almost to just distinguish it from the other games that they've made that are like this? And the answer to that simply is no. Miyazaki himself saying, no, we have not been making a conscious effort to try to direct it towards more Soulsborne type gameplay. The essential direction of Armored Core 6 was to go back and take a good look at the core concept of Armored Core and what made that series special. So we wanted to take the assembly aspect, assembling and customizing your own mech, your AC, or Armored Core, and then being able to exact a high level control over the assembled mech. So we wanted to take those two core concepts and re-examine those in our modern environment. So honestly, if you're a big fan of Armored Core, to me this sounds like, hey, it's gonna be the Armored Core that you know and love, the one that you like, the one that you've always known. In some ways, it's gonna have that spirit of Armored Core, but it's just gonna be a more modern take with some new bells and whistles. And if I'm you, someone who likes Armored Core, and I'm not, by the way, I would kind of be thrilled by that, to say that they're not just going to kind of try to copy what they've made before, but they're going to be making it an Armored Core game through and through. They may take some inspiration from their old games, or their current games, I should say, but it's going to be its own thing, of course. They go on to talk about their influences from their previous games, and they'll definitely take some of those systems and implement them in some ways into Armored Core 6, as we're probably going to see as they reveal more details about the game. It also features a posture system of sorts, which director Masaru Yamamura, a veteran of Dark Souls and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, says works by continuing to attack even the strongest enemy. The force of impact can break the enemy's posture and inflict a large amount of damage. Think of it as something like holding up a shield and absorbing damage until you're forced to relent. On top of that, I want to note that this game is not being directed by Miyazaki, it's going to be directed by Yamamura, and Yamamura is a veteran of the Souls series, as well as Sekiro, as well as FromSoftware themselves. So it makes sense that they're going to borrow a lot from these other games that they've made, but only what makes sense for Armored Core, and the rest is going to be entirely different. I think based on that alone, we're in good hands, but time will tell. But to kind of get into more about how this is going to be a little different, or at least a lot different from what we've seen from previous Souls games, is that it's not going to follow that open world formula from Elden Ring. It's going to have a mission-based structure, which depending on if you liked Elden Ring's open world or not, will be either music to your ears, or you might hate that, or you may just not care. You might just say this is a different game entirely, and you're kind of game for whatever they think is best. I personally love Elden Ring's open world, but that doesn't mean that it works for every game or everything that they want to do. So if they found that mission-based structure is going to work here, then it's going to work there. And they kind of get into that here a little bit. We felt that the mission-based structure was a benefit for this because it allows you to choose and customize before each sortie. At the very least, the tempo, the pace at which the player is able to move across the world and traverse the map. This is a very big aspect in how you approach this design, Miyazaki says. I think one of the big appeals points of the previous Armored Core games is having this freedom to choose how you're going to move across the map and how your choices are going to affect your mobility and your ability once you're actually in the level. This is the format we wanted to choose this time, and this is where we wanted to put our focus. If we want to compare it to a Souls game, which I'm not saying we should, because why would we? It's not going to be a Souls game, and they said it's not. But if we're going to just for a second, I would say it's probably going to be close to like a Neo type structure, where Neo has you kind kind of clicking on missions. You have an objective, of course, but you have free reign of the level within that mission. And given that we're going to be in massive mechs, this kind of mobility thing that they're talking about here, it probably means that they're going to be big open areas that we're going to have to explore. So I can see it still kind of being what it is, like that mission-based structure, but it still has that kind of FromSoft discoverability that we've grown to expect. You don't know what's around each corner, and upon replays and repetition, you'll kind of get the habit down of like what you're doing, but it's going to have its own flavor, just being the fact that you're picking different missions that you're going to be doing, getting released into the level, and then doing what you got to do. The next thing here is this, is that I don't think anyone would describe FromSoftware as one of those companies that is really great with performance. They are making great games, they're making groundbreaking games even, but their games are never known to be that technically sound in a lot of ways. Just frame rate drops, bugs, stuff like that. I mean, hell, Bloodborne still doesn't run 60 frames on PS5, and it's like, come on, man. Really? On PS5 it doesn't? There's actually a really great video of Digital Foundry did of them kind of doing a kind of upscaling of Bloodborne to play at 60 FPS. And honestly, it's kind of eye-opening. It just kind of tells you that there's something like under the hood with Bloodborne that's just kind of not optimized properly, that just makes it kind of a technical mess, even if you did do kind of AI upscaling to get it to where it's going to be playing at a higher resolution and at 60 FPS. It's a good video, honestly. You should just check it out. That being said, FromSoftware kind of implies that they really just, now that they have the resources at their disposal, seemingly vast resources at their disposal, they really want to take the time to kind of showcase that graphical fidelity with this next one. They want to spend that cachet big on Armored Core. They describe it as like, you know, you have these big massive mechs and you kind of want to show the metal, you want to show the plating, you want to show that fidelity, that detail of just them moving around and hulking around. FromSoft games are rarely known for their graphical fidelity as well. They're usually great looking games, but they're about where you'd expect them to be, I guess, or at least acceptable enough. I think what really makes them stand out a lot of times is just that visual style. I mean, I would argue that whatever resolution it's at, maybe it could stand to be a bit higher, but a good example is Bloodborne, where it still holds up just because the art style is so distinct and it just looks fantastic, in my opinion. And further, I think Elden Ring looks beautiful. I know it's not the best visually, like graphically, like fidelity wise, but I still think it's a beautiful game just because it's got such a distinct style and it looks fantastic. So if they can match that style with the graphical fidelity with Armored Core, I think it's gonna look great. A lot of publishers would probably see the success of like all of these different games that they've built and maybe just kind of try to keep replicating that success over and over. And to an extent, FromSoftware has. But I think they realize now that they have that cachet, they kind of have that grounding and that audience built in, that maybe this is the best time to bring back Armored Core. So honestly, it's kind of awesome in a way that they decided, you know, we made this big ass game, we made Elden Ring, but we're also going to make Armored Core now. And it might be a smaller game at that, but it's kind of cool in a way to see them kind of not rest on their laurels and say, no, we're going to bring back this old franchise. And even then, we're not going to even change the name or the title, rather. We're just going to be like, hey, no, it's 6, Armored Core 6. And the article says here, that may be the crux of what's driving FromSoftware to make Armored Core 6. It may have found untold riches in making games like Elden Ring, but it hasn't forgotten its beginnings. Pending the first full gameplay reveal, Armored Core seems to be fully set on, well, being an Armored Core game. With all that entails, it's even keeping the name, or the number rather, despite having a new story. That's just the simplest way to explain why they're going with 6 and not just like rebooting it despite it having a new story and whatnot. It's the fact that, hey, this is a brand new Armored Core game. Armored Core. It's a new game for the new generation of consoles or for the new generation of players who maybe either didn't get to experience the other Armored Core games or have been, or have rather, and this is their new game. Now, if you watched all that and you said, hey, well, what was the news here? The news here is just to say, like, if there's any part of you that was wondering, oh, is this going to be a Soulslike game? Is this going to be Armored Core as I remember it? I don't know, whatever you were thinking, or if you didn't know what to think, that's what this is. It's just going to be its own thing. It's going to be an Armored Core game through and through, whatever that means to you. Now, again, means nothing to me because I haven't played any Armored Core games, but you get what I'm trying to say. But in that, I'm also happy to hear that it's still going to be a FromSoft game. So it's going to have those big, bombastic boss battles. It's going to have different like posture stuff from them, maybe like Sekiro or Dark Souls and whatnot, but it's also gonna have its own story. It's gonna be a bit different of a game style, but at the end of the day, you'll never forget that it's a FromSoft game. And as someone who's new to this series, I'm kind of excited for this one because FromSoftware, in my opinion, has not put out anything but bangers for the last, I want to say, decade or so. I mean, maybe we can take Dark Souls 2 out back and just kind of put it out to pasture, but aside from that, nothing but bangers for the past decade and a half or however long it's been. I don't know math. But until then, I'm looking forward to seeing more, and I hope you like this video. Hope you consider subscribing, commenting, or even just kind of pitying me by thumbsing up the video. I don't know, man. Like, do whatever you want. I can't control you. But anyway, thanks for watching, and just remember, if you don't do any of the things I described, my enforcer back here is gonna kill you. I know I did that joke already, but I decided to do it again. Anyway, I'm gonna go now.